Hello everybody, day 24, and I think I have my camera tripod situation figured out. So we're going to continue on the mountain. I'm looking through this magnifying glass for ultra detail, and I think I got a good angle here. Got my reference image up on the little section of the mountain, lighting, situation, directly in my eyeballs, just how you want to draw. No, just kidding. It's not too bad. I got this little sheet so my eye doesn't have to travel too far. So this is kind of just to rough things in. You can see I have my grid on there. And then if I want extra layer of detail, I have a full quality image up there. Yeah, so let's get to it. I don't want to move the magnifying glass to show everything because it takes a minute to set up. So let's get into it. The one problem with this, this tripod, it's a little harder to get into. So we'll see. Oh, my light is causing a glare, which I did not anticipate. Let's see if I can adjust that a little bit. Maybe that's a little better. Okay, hopefully that's a little better. Let's get into it. As people join, we'll see how it all goes. So on these I was talking about the other day, I like to start off light and just sketch things in. So I'm just gonna work on this little section right here. And we're gonna see how it goes here. Okay. Un moment, por favor. So as I've talked about, this is where I'm trying to get very exact. This is a 2H pencil. This is where I'm trying to get super exact. And that's why I'm working under or through this magnifying glass. It's difficult to see the camera. So I'll pop up every once in a while, but like I mentioned, just gonna rough it in and then I'm gonna go back, start adding all these little details. This is a little mountain range, or some rocky outcroppings within or on top of Mount Rainier here. But unlike the forest that you've seen me draw on other days, here I'm going for like hyper detail and as close as I can get. And it's kind of, up close, it's not going to look like much. So once I kind of sketch this in, I'll pop out with the camera and show everybody. This is my concern when I started this everyday live project though, because at this point I have to focus in so much that it's hard to, the trees I can kind of go on autopilot, where here is I can't do that. Let's see. Okay. So that looks like nothing. Let me zoom out here. Show people what we got going on. So I'm working through this thing, which makes it hard to see the phone. I also keep fogging it up by breathing on it. So that tiny little section that I just sketched in took me 4 or 5 minutes. Up close, looks like nothing, but as I pull out, you can see there's a little mountain range here, or a little rocky outcropping, and then I'm working on this next little one. This is the section I have left. I just wanted to pop out and show a wide shot because I know a lot of people are probably like, what the heck is he drawing? But it's a little section of Mount Rainier here, so that's the kind of the level of detail that I'm at this point. But again, it's hard to figure out what's happening up close. So with that, and I have a full reference image here. That also helps, and I'm looking at this as well. But I sketch it in because on the mountain I want to get it exact. And now I'm going to start light, adding some detail in with some lighter values. Then I'll get darker and darker. The other tricky part is, of course, at this scale, once you have to erase something, if you want to adjust, it's so small. You don't want to erase if you don't have to. Of course, one remedy to avoid that would be if I drew bigger, but it's too late at this point, so let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to start with a HB pencil here and just shade in a little bit. And like I mentioned, I'm going to start pretty light, and then I'll kind of add detail as I'm able to with it by adding either more pressure or 2B pencil. But this scale, basically, I'm shading in this little rocky outcropping here. And really at this scale, you can only add little dots and things for changes in values, unless it was a big rocky area. You can't achieve too much detail at this scale. What's really important to pay attention to is the direction of all the little lines, because that's showing the slope of the mountain. And where there are little valleys, little snow fields, what direction all the rocks are facing. That's kind of one of the more important things to keep in mind. One of the hardest parts of working at the scale is keeping track. I have my, can you guys see? Yeah, I have under my right hand here, I have the sheet of, kind of a rough printout. But I'm looking back and forth and keeping track of where I am, because it's such a small little space. But that's why this requires a lot more focus than the trees. Well, maybe I can zoom in a little bit more here. So I think you guys can see it. Right here, it's darker, a little darker value. And on this right, so there's a little rocky, there's this little mountain on top of Mount Rainier. And this side is getting no sun. And this side, the sun's coming from shooting right to left here. This side is getting some sun. So that's one of the ways we're going to show some detail on this little section. But again, I like to start out light and get darker because I got to work so small. This is super sort of tedious work that you got to be hyper focused on. And that's why I do these small little sections. And that's also why I say, just set whatever your daily goal is and just try to achieve that to the highest level that you can. And then as, I showed everybody the wider shot of this drawing a few minutes ago. You're not going to do it all in one sitting. Just try to pick a small little section and do as detailed and focused as you can. If you're going realistic, if you're going for some other style, whatever style you prefer, obviously, then it's going to vary, but a few little details down here. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, I'm paying really close attention to where all these little rocks and things are pointing. So like here, there's a little valley of snow coming down. And up here, there's another one, but you can see the direction of these are little rocks and things sticking up out of the snow, but you can see they create this little snowfield valley. And making sure some of those little details line up. When you're working on them individually, they might look like they're random, but when you step back and look at them all together, you can see how it's creating that slope of your mountainside. So just something to pay attention to. And of course, some are random, but kind of on the whole, on average. Normally, you think like Mount Rainier has glaciers, so between glaciers or avalanches and things. Normally there's a reason for the way things are looking. You can see my little guideline in there. Gotta take that out, of course. See if I can get it with this. Then I'll pop out and show the wide angle in a second. Of course, when you draw your initial guide on your paper, try to do it just about as softly as you can so you can really easily lift it out. A lot of times the guidelines get covered, but there's a lot of snow up here, so this one didn't. There we go. Be super careful with that one. Okay, so let me show the wide shot again, just so people can get a perspective of what's going on. So, like I was saying, follow all the directions of your little rocks. See how all these little angles here on these rocks form this little snow field, and then here the snow field opens up. So, just pay attention to them. Here's the little section. Let me see if I can hold this steady. This is the little section we just filled in. Now I'm going to add a little bit more contrast with some darker values. But again, I just wanted to show, like, up close, obviously it doesn't look like I'm doing much, but it's sort of that, like a painting. As you back up, everything makes more sense. And now if people who are going to see this in person, when they go in, they'll see all these little details and such. Here's also what I was mentioning earlier. So this is a little rocky outcropping on Mount Rainier. This side is all in shadow. This side's all getting sun because the sun is shooting from right to left here. And here's, again, reference image that I'm looking at a high res photo, but I'm also looking at this little sheet of paper for a more rough kind of outline. All right, let's go back in and get some more values in here. Get this all situated. And whatever, if you're drawing realistically, take whatever things sort of help you here. But don't forget to put some of your own thoughts into how you would prefer to draw it or what kind of style you like. Keep it authentic to you as an artist as you draw. All right, so I'm going to go stick with this HB and just get a little darker, add a little more pressure here. And I probably will do a little bit of sort of my erasing techniques near the end here. Super subtle, but just to add a little bit of that finesse. And similar to what I would do on the trees, it adds a little bit of random again. Especially when, like, you think of what am I about to say here? You think of rocks and all those different sides of rocks and how they get different amounts of sunlight on them. I don't mind if I put in a little bit of randomness here. Oopsies. I don't want to just shade this in, keep my pencil to paper the whole time. Just think of rocks and all those different little, sides, little jaggedness to them. Each one sort of gets showing unique amount of light. And again, the sun is on the right here going left. And so little bits of this are in the sun. And, think of a mountain like again, this is sloping up and this is sloping down for the most part. But there are still all those little indents and variations in there. So I just want to make sure, even though I can't fully distinguish what these little rocky outcroppings look like, I want to make sure it has the variation and the feel and the texture of rocks, If I were to just shade it all in, that would mean it's like a perfectly flat rock, and then that is almost never the case. Of course, if you want to know how to draw larger rocks, I have a tutorial on that. Check it out. It's called How to Draw Rocks and Boulders, I think is the name of it. But those will be at a much larger scale than what I'm doing here. And a lot of the same techniques and thought process carry over to mountains. Because, of course, mountains are just really big rocks. Which I also have a tutorial how to draw mountains. So check out either of those. Again, those I'm working at a larger scale. I'm not going as realistic. Those are more beginner focused. And although I do have a how to draw mountains intermediate one as well, which gets a little bit more into texture if that interests you. But here, this is more of just a personal project to, kind of, at the beginning, it was more just to challenge myself to see if I could do it. And then a year and a half later, I'm still working on it. But a lot of that's because I've been working on my channel tutorials. There's a playlist I have, techniques to draw any landscape, I think is what it's called. That has all my landscape drawing tutorials, if you're interested. What I'm doing right now is kind of an extreme example. I don't have anything that goes this in depth. But you can check out, if you want to see more of this drawing, there's a bunch of lives I have, as I've been trying to finish this drawing off over the last several weeks here. And I just, a lot of this mountain I didn't do on a live, I just got to this point. And I was always a little bit nervous because this takes so much focus, and it almost, I'm sure you're watching, if you just jumped on, you're thinking, what the heck is this guy drawing? Just a bunch of blips and blops. But that's just because I'm between the scale and the close-up angle here. It's hard to get a full perspective. of what I'm doing. And some of this, some of this, just because I've been working on this drawing for a while, I can't really see the direction. So on my reference image right here, if you can see that, yeah, you can see that. This is all darker shadow. So that tells me that this is going down and to the left because it's not getting any sun on it. So I can't see it for certain, but all of my lines are coming up and to the right because that is the slope of that little section, or at least what I believe is the slope. I can't see it, but think your pencil and your marks kind of do leave a bit of an imprint or kind of like a memory as to which directions your lines came from. So there, I was kind of doing it as if, just to give that little impression of the slope there. Even though I can't fully see it, once you get a better understanding of the drawing you're working on, little things like that. Okay, let's scale this out here. Oopsies. A few people jumped on. Let me show you. So, still going to keep on working in there, but this is the little section we're working on. Let me see if this... a little bit of a glare off the graphite, but... learner, cooking and drawing. Hello, how are you? Thanks for tuning in, if you're still here. I kind of had my head... So again, for people, I'm working through this, so I don't see the camera very often. And it's a little section I have left right here, of course. This is what we're still working on. Super tedious. And of course, all the trees. If you want to see any of these, this is tree work. The last, I don't know, the first 20 lives in day 1 through 20. Show a lot of that. But I'm going to jump back in here and hopefully, if you have any questions, I'll try to pop out and read them, but I got to kind of focus in here. Yeah, see, looking at through the phone angle right now, it doesn't look like much, but whoopsies. All right, let's get back into this. A little section, just want to lighten up a little bit. So I talk about this eraser a lot and how I like it because it doesn't erase very well. So I can just lift up. At this scale, there's so many little variations in the value that are hard to achieve. This is a piece of sandpaper. I like to rough it up. This is going to enhance that rock texture where I was telling you, all sorts of different light hits it. And so, at this scale, I can't fully distinguish, but I just like to add some of that little randomness back in. Just lift up little bits. And with it on that sandpaper, you can add just a little bit of that texture because it erases unevenly. Hey, you. It's a bit risky, but there's a little bit of mountain or snow up here. Let's just see if we can get it. Yeah. Details nobody's ever going to see, but again, when you study so if you watch any of my videos, you're a big nature guy, there's a little snowy, so you kind of understand how these things shape out. This is a little section in shadow, right, because our sun is hitting from the right going left. Then there's these little snowy patches here that show where the mountain is turning over. So is anybody ever going to see that? No, but I'm nuts, so I like to get little details like that in. I don't even know if people can see that on camera, but here we are. Okay, let me just zip out here. Let's see. Like I said a few minutes ago, the rocks here are going to be going down and to the right. And I can tell that because on my reference image, they're a little bit lighter in value. That means they're getting some sun on there. So again, all my lines on this side are going down and to the right. Just, in case a little bit of the direction of my line show through, I want to leave that impression of the rocks going that way. And on this side, they're all going down and to the left because this is in shadow. These are like tiny little details. Again, I don't think most people are going to pick up. But if a little bit of your line show through, it helps keep that illusion going of the little mountain, the little rocky outcropping on this mountain. And again, I'm a little bit, obsessive, so some of this stuff is just me talking to myself here. This is my 2B pencil, a little bit fatter lead. I just want to darken, again, where the sun's not hitting here. Just darkening this in a little bit. You can see on my camera, there's a little bit of glare on the graphite, so I'll try to move that in a second to give a better angle. But Just adding a few little darker, again, those little faces of the rock. I want little darker sections, just to give the impression of different rock faces. All right, let me zoom out here. People get a better idea of what's going on. And I think that might be it for that little section. So this is all the little details we just did. Again, it's still a little hard with the glare, but so this is what I was talking about a second ago, where this is a little mountain on the mountain. And you can see this side is getting no light going down to the left. This is just a little bit lighter, where you can see, like right there, there's a little directional line going down and to the right. Again, nobody's going to see that, probably, but you'll know it. And there are some cases, like bigger sections like here, where you can see it. So you can see the slope. This kind of goes, you can see there's some ridge lines here that change direction. And again, here's shadows going down to the left. This is getting sunlight going down and to the right, for the most part. So that's kind of the level I'm trying to pay attention to detail on this thing, which it's probably an unhealthy amount, but I'm almost done. So anyways, I think that's going to be it. I might do a few without having the camera and the light in my eyes, little touch-ups, but tomorrow we'll continue on another section, and I'm looking ahead, working a little bit larger, so you might be able to get more detail in there where things look like things. But that's what it takes, 40 minutes. That's how much attention to detail I'm paying on little sections to get the realism here. All right, thanks for watching, everybody.